The Kerrville City Council meeting to order on Tuesday, March 14th. If you will stand with me, we will have the pledge and a prayer. Lord, as we come to you tonight, we ask, as we always do, that you just be with us, guide our thoughts, our words, and the decisions that we make. I ask, Lord, that you watch over all of our men and women in uniform, be they our local police and fire and EMS, to the military who are serving across the ocean. We just ask that you look out for them, be with their families. They're important to us, and they're doing a wonderful, wonderful job for us, for our country. And we just thank you, Lord, for the community that we live in. We're lucky. We are blessed. Just help us appreciate what we have and help us to do the best that we can to take care of it in every way that we can. In your name we pray. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Stuart, do you have some good things for us tonight?
We do. But I have to put my glasses on to tell you about it. First of all, hello to everybody. Glad to have everybody here tonight. We've got some exciting proclamations coming up and recognition, so we'll get to that as soon as we can. But let me just tell you about a few things that are going on this week. Parks activities, big week at Kerrville Shriner Park. Tonight, campfire night. If we get done early enough, like I said 2 weeks ago, we have s'mores. We can go out and get some s'mores out there. So hoping to have a big turnout out there. And then tomorrow night is family game night, some games planned out there. And then this Saturday, March 18th, is Encanto, and that will be at Kerrville Shriner Park. So lots of activities out there this week. Also, activities at the library. Tomorrow, well, it's kids' activities. Tomorrow, Wednesday, March 15th, we have yoga story time beginning at 10 a.m., spring break science event at 2 p.m., and then Thursday, March 16th, spring break craft at 2 p.m. and teen craft at 4 p.m. Adult activities, tomorrow, March 15th, we have stretch and relax yoga. We need to go. That starts at 11:30 a.m., and then a movie chat at 3:30 p.m., and then Thursday, the Mystery Book Club is at 12 p.m. And all those activities are in the downstairs library room. So hope somebody will come out and see us. We look forward to it. Some of y'all may have, there we go. Some of y'all may have seen a big bronze moving down Bandera Highway the other day. It was quite a move, and we want to tell you a little bit about it. Sculptor Fritz White's bronze winning the Iron Shirt, which is at the top left there. And Joe Beeler's Thanks for the Rain, the bottom left. They're now out at the Museum of Western Art after being moved yesterday from their longtime location at the LDB Corporation. Both pieces were donated to the city of Kerrville in honor of the late oil man rancher L.D. Brinkman, who was, and they were part of his private collection. Pretty impressive pieces there, and it was a pretty amazing thing to watch them go down the road. Sculptures have been lent to the museum by the city of Kerrville in honor of Brinkman, and he was one of the originating founding sponsors of the museum when it first opened in 1983. I encourage everybody to go out there and look. The winning the Iron Shirt is when you pull in the gate. It's right there at the top of the hill, and it's pretty impressive. It looks even bigger when you're looking up at it like that. It's a big sculpture to begin with, as you can tell from the top left picture. But go out and take a look at it. And that's it for me. Does anybody up there have?
Okay. I would encourage everyone to do the same. The gates aren't locked, and they are just beautifully impressive. And we just thank Kathleen and for donating them, and thank the museum for being willing to take them and use them until we can find permanent homes. So it's exciting. The only thing I wanted to mention is our hospital, I believe today, was awarded an award for the best care. There may be something else, but something like that. So congratulations to them. Anybody else have something? Yes, Joe?
No, I'm saying.
Oh, okay, I thought maybe you did. All right. Okay, then we will continue with presentations, and we've got some wonderful ones tonight. All right, if Darren Smith and Justin Gonzalez will come up, please. You have some people that want to stand with you, or are they just here to support?
Yes.
Here to support. All right, this is a Kerrville Kindness Award. The city of Kerrville recognizes Darren Smith and Justin Gonzalez with the March 14, 2023 Kerrville Kindness Award. Darren Smith, a trauma program manager / EMS liaison at Peterson Regional Medical Center, and Justin Gonzalez, a Tybee High School resource officer, were instrumental in facilitating the placement of signs at Tybee reminding students to buckle up. Smith works with Doreen Palestrant, whose son David was killed November 4th, 2021, in a rollover accident in which he was not wearing a seatbelt. David was the only fatality in the accident, though other students in the vehicle were injured. In hopes of helping the Palestrant family spread the word about the importance of wearing seatbelts, Smith contacted Gonzalez, and the two coordinated with both the Kaylee Miles Foundation and the staff at Tybee High School to install signs located by the exits of the student parking lots that read, "Buckle up, somebody loves you." The Kylie Mills Foundation was created by Kylie's parents after she was killed in a car accident as a backseat, unrestrained driver. Thanks to the efforts of both Smith and Gonzalez, Tybee students now have a visible reminder of the importance of wearing seatbelts every time they leave campus. We thank you, gentlemen, very much. And a picture, I assume. All right, would either of you like to say something?
Appreciate this very much, and on behalf of Doreen, I'm not sure if she's here tonight or not, making this happen. Really appreciate Justin. He was my first call after I got his number. You know, with trauma, it's the prevention, injury prevention is our main goal. And this is Injury Prevention 101. We don't want any teenage deaths related to any sort of accident, whether alcohol or not is involved. So just really appreciate this, but in memory of her, in memory of David, want to keep moving forward for the Palestrants to make this not ever happen again for any students. So.
Thank you all. Good. Congratulations. Thank you.
How tall are you?
Right.
We appreciate you. Do you want to get a picture with those who came with you?
Absolutely.
Let's do that. Come on up, you guys. You made the effort to come. Let's.
What about the family?
Officer
Do we have
Gonzalez, do you want to bring your family up?
Okay.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah,
If you
come
want
on
to.
up.
Yes. I'm sorry, didn't realize we had family there. Go ahead, and we'll just have you move along here.
Let's get some of y'all to come over on this side.
Just a family person.
Sure.
At what school? I think the high school. Is it the high school? I think so. He was visiting the other resource officer, so I didn't know.
Now the whole group.
Oh, I know spelled right.
And while they're coming up, introduce your family to us.
So this is my wife Rose, son Colton and Casey.
All right, and these guys are in what grade?
5th grade, they're twins.
Twins,
Yes.
hey, all right.
son said it to him.
Oh, yeah.
They're out of town.
Oh, my.
All right.
Get everybody to move in closer.
So I think you guys are gonna have to cozy up.
Perfect.
All right,
Thank
we
you.
good?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate it. All right, our next presentation is for the American Red Cross. And I believe we have some individuals who are here to represent. Debbie?
Yeah,
Right?
yep.
Are
Richard
you
couldn't
the
make
right-
it, so he had to do
Couldn't
it.
make it. All right, well, we thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right, City of Kerrville proclamation. Whereas, during American Red Cross Month in March, we celebrate the humanitarian spirit of volunteers and reaffirm our commitment to help ensure no one faces a crisis alone. And whereas, caring for one another is at the heart of our community and exemplified by simple acts of kindness performed by American Red Cross volunteers that provide help and hope in people's most difficult moments, continuing the life-saving legacy of Clara Barton, who founded the organization more than 140 years ago to prevent and alleviate human suffering. And whereas every day these ordinary individuals lend a helping hand to make an extraordinary difference for neighbors in need, whether it's providing emergency shelter, food and comfort for families displaced by home, fires, and other disasters, donating life-saving blood for cancer patients, accident victims, and people with sickle cell disease and other life-threatening conditions, supporting military members and veterans, along with their families and caregivers through the unique challenges of service, using vital skills like first aid and CPR to help others survive medical emergencies, or delivering international humanitarian aid and reconnecting loved ones separated by crises around the world. And whereas their support, volunteerism, and generous donations are critical to our community's resilience. We hereby recognize this month of March in honor of all those who fulfilled Clara Barton's noble words, "You must never think of anything except the need and how to meet it," and ask everyone to join in this commitment. Now therefore, I, Judy Eichner, Mayor of the City of Kerrville, Texas, do hereby proclaim March 2023 as American Red Cross Month. And I encourage all Kerrville citizens to support this organization and its noble humanitarian mission. And it's been signed. So,
Thank
we
you so
thank
much.
Okay. Would you like to say a
Yes.
few words to the group?
Well, I'd like to thank the whole community and the city council for supporting the Red Cross. We are just so excited about we're moving forward in a new era. And actually, Kerrville has been selected as one of our cities that we're going to target next year. And so I will be getting with you to try to figure out what we can do to help support the community and to make it a safer place.
Okay,
So thank you very much.
you are welcome.
Okay.
We appreciate it. Well,
Here we go.
any more pictures here? All right.
Thank
Please
you.
shake a hand of the city
Thank you.
council.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. How are you?
Hi.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Can we get one, Mayor, with her holding the proclamation?
Oh, sure, sure, sure.
There we go.
But I'll,
Okay.
Okay.
I will.
Thank you.
All right, very good. All right, we have one more. And this is Meals on Wheels. And do we have some representatives? All right, Brenda and Katie, right?
Paige.
Paige, that's right, I'm sorry, Paige.
That's okay.
That's right. All right, now this is a long one. So be ready, okay?
I wrote it.
You did? of Kerrville proclamation. Whereas on March 22nd, 1972, President Nixon signed into law a measure that amended the Older Americans Act of 1965 to include a national nutrition program for individuals 60 years and older. For more than 5 decades, this landmark law has helped to fund community-based organizations like Meals on Wheels, and it is still the only federal program designed specifically to meet the nutritional and social needs of older adults. And whereas this year, Meals on Wheels programs from across the country are joining together for the March for Meals awareness campaign to celebrate its success and garner the support needed to ensure these critical programs can continue to address food insecurity and malnutrition, combat social isolation, enable independence, and improve health for years to come. And, now this is a long one, a group of Diedert Center, it's all right, a group of Diedert Center volunteers in Kerrville and Kerr County established a program to serve seniors both congregate and home-delivered meals 53 years ago, which became a part of the national Meals on Wheels movement. Diedert Center volunteers for the Meals on Wheels program are the backbone of the program, and they not only deliver nutritious meals to seniors and individuals with disabilities who are at significant risk of hunger and isolation, but also caring concern and attention to their welfare. The Diedert Center Meals on Wheels program provides nutritious meals to seniors throughout the area that help them maintain their health and independence. The program also provides a powerful opportunity for social connection for hundreds of Kerrville and Kerr County seniors to help combat the negative health effects and economic consequences of loneliness and isolation. And whereas Diedert Center Meals on Wheels program deserves recognition for the significant contributions and essential services they have provided amid inclement weather and other emergencies, and whereas the senior population is increasing substantially and action is needed to support local Meals on Wheels programs through federal, state, and local funding, volunteering, donations, and raising awareness to ensure these vital services can continue to be delivered for years to come. Now, therefore, I, Judy Eichner, Mayor of the City of Kerrville of Texas, do hereby proclaim March 2023 as a month celebrating Meals on Wheels, and urge, excuse me, every community member to take this month to honor our senior nutrition programs, the individuals they serve, and the volunteers who care for them. Our recognition of and involvement in the National March for Meals celebration can enrich our community, our entire community, and help combat senior hunger and isolation in America. And it is so.
I even took some out.
So let's get some pictures and then we'll let you say a couple words here. All right.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for the support that the city gives to the Diedert Center and has been supportive over the last 53 years of providing these services for our seniors. We deliver about 65,000 meals a year in Kerr County to our seniors, and that takes about 200 volunteers that donate over 21,000 hours of their time to deliver those meals. So we look forward to March for Meals because we really get to really support our volunteers. We do have our March for Meals week next week, our Community Champions Week, and we have, some of y'all have signed up to come do a route, and we still have some space available if anybody'd like to. It's a lot of fun. You get a real good breakfast. We cook breakfast every morning, so you get a fun little breakfast, and you get to truly see the heart and the hands of the volunteers and what the process is for us to provide these services. And you get to see firsthand when you go to those seniors' homes, how excited they are. And there are a lot of them peeking through the window waiting for you to come, because this may be the only person they see every day, because their family doesn't live here. So thank you once again for this, and thank you for supporting our Dietrich Center Meals on Wheels. Appreciate it very much.
Well, and it's more than just that meal. It's that face, it's that smile, it's that how are you? It makes such a difference.
We even take care of their pets. We had a pet program, we had a grant, because a lot of seniors might eat half of their meal and give the other half to their pet. And so we find out if they have pets, and we send pet food with them so that their pets can be fed. And then we had a grant that helped with some of their veterinary services. So we really take care of their pets as well. And so, you know, we have a lot of support from all the other organizations, pet organizations in town that help us do that too. So, yeah, it's a great program.
It is.
Thank y'all very much. Appreciate it.
And please, shake a hand or kiss a person. Thank you.
Good job. All right. All right, Shelley, do we have some visitors to talk to us?
Yes, ma'am, we have Stephen Foley.
If you, yes, go to that mic, please, sir.
I want to have a conversation with you, but I have some handouts for you also, so you can follow along. I'm a resident and homeowner on Murda Street, and some of you may or may not be familiar with Murda Street, but just so that you know what we're talking about, Murda Street runs between Sidney Baker and Tivy. It's between where Exxon and Wahoo's is. It's 4/10 of a mile. It's 36 residents. It's got 36 driveways. Oh, thanks. There's kids playing, there's deer running around, there's no stop signs. And 2 years ago, I had a conversation, I called Joel Miner. Ironically, he lives at Tivy and Murda. And I was complaining about my issue is, it's not a traffic issue, but we have a speeding issue. And it's out of control. I think because there's no stop signs, there's no enforcement, people just 35, 40 miles an hour down the street. This is a residential neighborhood. So when I talked to Joel, he goes, oh yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. He says, cars come off of Tivy and on both ends. On the Tivy end, there's a little hill, and then it flattens out. And he goes, they just go balls to the wall up that hill, and they go speeding away. So it's like, he did a study on it. And the study was basically, I think he was looking at it more of a traffic issue. So they run the lines across the street so you can measure the number of traffic that's coming through. And they put up the speed signs. Unfortunately, they put up the speed signs in the wrong directions. They put them facing Tivy, they put them facing Sidney Baker, and that's where the cars aren't getting the momentum. They come up both those hills from either direction, and by the time they get to the middle of the street, they're doing 35 and 40 miles an hour. So there was never a stop sign there, but they've recently put a stop sign at 30 miles an hour. Well, 30 miles an hour in residential neighborhoods, in my mind, very excessive. And the other side of the coin is, frankly, nobody pays any attention to the speed limit sign. They just blow right through them, and they're probably 100 foot from Sidney Baker and 100 foot from Tivy. It's gotten so bad that neighbors are putting signs out in the street saying, you know, please slow down. But there's sometimes people will take that and go, well, heck, I'm going to speed up. So there's an issue that everybody in the neighborhood is concerned with. Everybody. In fact, one of the handouts I have, I went through and did a poll. Every single house I went to where there was somebody there signed a petition stating, yeah, we have a serious issue. So what's happening is we actually have a former police officer from the city of Kerrville who lives on the street. And he's actually measured it on the street, and he's estimated traffic's traveling 35, 45, and there's times 50, 55 miles an hour coming down the street. It's absolutely insane what's happening in a residential neighborhood. So what the issue is it's not the traffic. I mean, we live there, we expect the traffic, but there's gotta be some way to slow it down. I mean, if you look at a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, Gulf Avenue is 30 miles an hour, it's got sidewalks. Barnett, the city spent thousands of dollars redoing all of Barnett Street. It's 40 foot wide, it's 8 foot wider than Murda, it's got sidewalks on both sides, it's not residential, and yet our street is the one that's a complete thoroughfare where people just go as fast as they want to go down the street. So the neighborhood's up in arms over that. You know, the kids playing, deer running around, excessive speeding, lots of driveways, people coming in and out of, and everybody's just frankly tired of it. You know, it's just, we want the city to do something about it. I went and talked to the fire department, because I know this has been brought up before. It's like, we don't want to put stop signs up, we don't want to put speed bumps up, because it interferes with emergency vehicles. Okay, well, first off, the Central
Mr.
Fire
Foley.
Department at,
Mr. Foley, I'm sorry, that was the buzzer for your time being up.
oh,
I know.
can I tell you what I want?
Pardon?
Can I just tell you what I want? What we want is citizens. I didn't know I had a 3-minute
We're on a
form.
time thing. Tell us very
We want a
briefly.
stop sign at Washington and Murda, and we want a speed hump at Robinson and Murda.
Okay.
The fire
stop
department
sign
doesn't
and
ever
speed.
use Murda. The police seldom or ever patrolling the street. And when the fire department says, I asked them, I said, if there was an emergency on Sidney Baker, how would you get there? We would use Jefferson Street. So it's not an issue of emergency vehicles. It's not an issue of a speed bump hindering traffic.
So it's a stop sign and a speed bump.
Four-way stop in Murda,
Okay.
and a speed hump, which is different from the speed bump at Robinson and Murda. And I talked,
Okay.
one last thing. Officers told me that if there's an emergency, we don't care if it's a speed bump or not, we're going right to the emergency. So that's, I guess that's my time.
That's
How
your
much time do I
time,
have
I'm
in the
sorry.
future?
But thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope that can be addressed.
Pardon?
I hope that can be addressed.
Well, staff will take this under consideration.
Okay, thank you.
If you've left your contact information, we'll touch base with you.
Okay. so
Did you need
who
any of your
I do-
stuff back?
Hopefully you
Yeah,
filled it
I
out.
do, because I have blood.
Okay.
Where is it?
Which did you want to leave for the council?
They can, the petitions, just so they can see, well, all the names, they can see, it's not just me speaking,
Okay.
it's
you
speaking for the neighborhood.
Decide on what you want to leave for council and give it to me.
To you?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I go around the other way?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Peggy McKay? Peggy McKay, 103 Westchester, Kerrville. I'm here to announce that some of you may have heard, this is the 70th anniversary of St. Vincent de Paul serving the citizens of Kerrville and the surrounding area. First of all, they've got a thrift store, a wonderful thrift store where you can shop Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 11 to 2, or if you're so inclined to drop off any donations. Also, a very busy place is the food pantry and the financial aid office, which is open on Wednesday night and Saturday morning. It's notable to me, every volunteer on the staff is a volunteer. There are no paid employees. It's a wonderful place to volunteer, so if anyone has the time, volunteers are most welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peggy, what was the food pantry and what else is open Wednesday and Sunday?
Monday, Wednesday, Friday is the thrift store from 11 to 2, and the food pantry and financial office are open Wednesday evening 6 to 8 and Saturday 9 to 11.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And that's the end of our citizen speakers.
All right, thank you very much. All right, we will move on to number 4, to the consent agenda. And is there anything anyone wants pulled, council, or from the public? If not, I will will ask for I will make a motion that we will approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
We have a second, Brenda, and all in favor, raise your right hand, and it is unanimous. And I just want to add a thank you to the Make a Difference Committee, our city staff that participates in the community activities that they do. We appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, we are ready then for number 5A.
Ordinance number 2023-09, second reading, an ordinance amending Chapter 90 of the Code of Ordinances, City of Kerrville, Texas, titled Streets, Sidewalks, and Other Public Places, by adding a new article titled Right-of-Way Management to create regulations including a permit requirement for construction, maintenance, and repair work within the city's right-of-way, providing for a penalty in the maximum amount of $2,000 for violations thereof, and providing other matters relating to the subject. We do not have any citizen speakers signed up.
All right, Drew?
Thank you. Normally I would not have a PowerPoint for second reading, but we had a citizen reach out to a couple council members, Councilmember Clarkson as well, with a couple questions, and I just wanted to clarify.
Thank you.
Had some good dialogue. Just a reminder, this is action item M5.6 to develop and implement a new right-of-way ordinance. The purpose statement I won't go through. We've been through that before. It's in the ordinance itself. There's the contents of the ordinance, again, for the management of the right-of-way to have a permitting process, construction methods consistent with city specs, utility locations and placements, traffic control, lane closures and road closures, and pavement preservation. But one of the points that was brought up was the impact this may or may not have on, specific to residences, for mailboxes, because that is another user of the right-of-way that we didn't discuss previously. We looked at, just from the staff standpoint, presenting an exemption to exempt them. However, we do have some instances where they're actually in conflict with other uses of the ordinance, or of the right-of-way. Just a couple examples of some larger, either the brick mailboxes or multiple pole mailboxes that you see here, that are actually blocking the width of the right-of-way for that passage of pedestrians, pedestrians and wheelchairs.
Yeah.
Some could, I didn't find any specific, but some could cause visibility issues depending upon location and adjacency to a driveway, size, scale, and so on. So the ordinance is written to require any construction in the right-of-way is required a permit. So in that vein, building a mailbox would require a permit if you're building a larger brick or rock structure like these. Some of the things that we would be concerned with is the 36-inch clear path around the mailbox. I know several around town have this, some do, some don't. Some are probably smaller, may not be exactly 36 inches, but this is an example of what we'd be looking for with the installation of that kind of a mailbox. And then just setting some general parameters, 24-inch distance from back of curb to the back of the mailbox, so that they don't become so large they are a visual obstruction. A maximum height of 60 inches is a recommendation. Those numbers we would actually put in the city specifications. So it wouldn't be part of the ordinance, just by reference to those right-of-way specs. And double checking with the Postal Service, they are required the bottom of the mailbox to be 41 to 45 inches above the road surface. So with that 60-foot maximum height, you could have your brick and decorative things and so on, flower pots that we've seen, lights, give some other options beyond just the mailbox. So we didn't want to restrict it too much, but since they are also a user of the right-of-way, just wanted to go through and point those out. Any specific questions on that? Since that wasn't something we presented on before, but it certainly would be impacted by the ordinance.
Anything that's in place, whether it meets requirements or not, is grandfathered.
That's correct.
But if anyone puts in a new or wants to make changes.
Right.
And what again is the permit fee?
That'll come with the budget amendment that's coming up on the next couple
Okay,
agendas.
oh, okay.
We don't have that established yet. One thing, just briefly talked with staff, permit fee for the mailbox may be substantially less, because there's obviously not much work going into that. Just making sure it was built properly, so it'd be a final inspection, versus a utility installation where they're excavating the roadway and
Right.
so on, as a much larger impact on staff time. So we'd be looking at a pretty low fee for the mailboxes in a residential use like this versus a block-wide utility installation. But we'll bring those specifically with the mid-year budget amendment.
Okay, and nothing would change as far as the restrictions here if it's an area that has no curbs?
It would still require a permit. I think keeping the same standard would just provide that consistency. From the back of pavement, you would still have that same expectation. Similar question for the areas that don't have sidewalks. Obviously, you wouldn't need to provide that 36-inch clearing of the sidewalk because there is no sidewalk. But the size and location standard would still apply.
Still be the same.
I recognize every one of these mailboxes. Y'all are in my hood, man.
Except I figured most of them would probably be able to be found, but clearly not trying to pick on anybody. We just found some good examples driving through.
We can take it.
Again, today is second reading, and we will have, in the ordinance, you do have a delayed effective date, so that applicable fee would come up with the effective date of the ordinance. We don't have a gap between the two.
And remember, the primary purpose of this ordinance is notification of the city when utility companies are working in the public's right-of-way or potentially, having infrastructure changes within that right-of-way. The mailbox question is a question that came up late. That's not the primary purpose of this ordinance change.
All right, are we ready to vote on the second reading, council? Do we have a motion?
So, Mayor, can I make a comment?
Sure.
I'm not sure who all was contacted by, for me, it was Dr. Rector about the mailboxes. But what I appreciate is that those comments I was able to get to city manager and Drew. And so those were spoken to tonight. And so it's just for transparency and for the public to know that you can always reach out to a council member. And the sooner the better, because that way when we come to a meeting, staff can be prepared to answer those questions and make those explanations so that we can all make decisions based on what's asked instead of, not knowing the answers because the questions haven't yet been posed. So that was very helpful to me, and I thank you for stopping your day and what you were doing to look in and add this to the presentation on very short notice, but so that we could make an informed decision.
Yeah, thank you. I also forwarded the same.
All right, are we ready?
Yes, I'll move to approve ordinance number 2023-09 on second reading.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, raise your right hand, and it is unanimous. All right, thank you very much. And we are ready for our last consideration of this meeting.
Amended commercial lease between the City of Kerrville and BTB Baseball Ventures LLC. And we do have one citizen speaker signed up.
All right, thank you. Ashley?
Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you this evening is an amended lease between the city and DBAT. This lease is recommended to be amended for a few reasons. The original lease was executed prior to the opening of the complex. It was executed back in 2016. The complex opened in 2018. And it was executed under previous city council staff and DBAT ownership. That entity did transition to a different entity. The current lease is a 20-year term lease, and it has two options for 5-year renewals, so essentially it's a 30-year lease. And a contract such as this with a significant lease period, especially for a new operation that's not in existence yet, should be evaluated periodically to ensure it's still relevant and to current operations and beneficial to all parties. Ideally, the contract should allow for amendment when possible to reflect how it actually operates. And now that we have 5 years of knowledge, through ownership transitions and pandemic and operations, we have a better understanding of how this lease should operate. As a reminder, the goal of the Kerrville Sports Complex is to provide a place for local team sports play and to provide an indirect economic impact to the community through hotel motel tax and sales tax for sports tourism. It was not designed to be a cost recovery facility, and language regarding this purpose was added into the lease amendment. As a reminder, regarding the maintenance, the city provides all outdoor maintenance for both sides of the complex. DBAT is the city's tenant and operates the indoor facility in addition to programming the baseball and softball fields through tournaments and local play. Their rent is performance-based, which will be discussed in a moment. Here's a graph indicating DBAT's tournament team performance since inception. On the very far left of the screen is 2018, and on the right is 2023 year-to-date. The bars in green are total tournament teams, and the bars in teal are qualified tournament teams. As defined in the lease, qualified teams are a minimum of 20 team tournaments. So tournaments that do not have a minimum of 20 teams do not count towards this performance measure for the rent incentive. Just keep in mind when you're looking at the 2020 graphs, that's a fluke year based off of benefits we received from COVID. We were one of the only facilities that once we were allowed to be opened back up from the governor that we actually opened up, and so we benefited from that. Okay, the next couple of slides is information directly received from DBAT, and the general manager of the local DBAT franchise is here this evening, and I will let him speak to any questions you may have at the end of the presentation. In regards to the 2022 performance, here's a couple of factors that, according to DBAT, it was decreased due to decreased fall baseball players due to football. Softball tournament director moved, and they relied on outside directors to bring in teams instead of having somebody locally that would attract the teams. 20-team tournament contractual definition requirement is a deterrent, especially with cancellations that are out of DBAT's control. So we saw that some tournaments, if they didn't meet that 20 number threshold, they went ahead and canceled because they knew it wouldn't add to their performance measure for the rent. Bad weather is a deterrent. It can cause tournaments to move. So that's very, tournaments move based on weather. If somebody sees it's going to look better in San Antonio than it is Kerrville for whatever reason, or another city, tournament directors can opt to move them. It's difficult in getting teams to skip over bigger cities to come to play in Kerrville. The major cities, San Antonio, Austin, Houston, Dallas, for example, have tournaments every single weekend. Kerrville DBAT has to operate differently to gain tournament market share, and I'll let Nico speak to that in a moment. Umpire directors, it's hard to get umpires to travel to Kerrville. We see the same issue with our youth or with our adult sports leagues. We have a hard time getting umpires, especially trained ones, to participate in our leagues, and they would rather, if they live in San Antonio, it doesn't make sense for them to travel here, so umpires is an issue. And then also universities have reopened for high school play. They were previously closed for COVID, allowing the complexes the opportunity to host, hence the 2020 spikes. As for 2023 efforts and goals, DBAT is working diligently to have a great fall ball schedule so the performance numbers do not fall short in the fourth quarter as we saw this 2022 year. Marketing to the teams earlier in the year and making a push for tournaments that would work around the local football schedules on the weekends. Recommendation of lowering the contractual tournament definition to 10 plus teams will help from 20 to 10. And then the general manager is now the perfect game director for South Texas. This creates more control over tournament locations and allows the opportunity to attract more events to Kerrville. DBAT's working with Shriner University for umpire branding with the baseball program to capitalize on umpire resources. Summer program being geared towards youth to offset competition with high school baseball. And working with a specialized dedicated vendor to attract tournaments and manage local hotel motel bookings. They're also working directly with the CVB staff. So the proposed contract amendments include the following. The term, we recommend changing the term to a 3-year term with 2 options for 1-year renewals. So essentially if both of those terms options go forth, it would be a 5-year term. The term date would be retroactive to January 1st in order to have a clean calendar year performance with the measures set forth. Starting later would complicate how we measure the performance based on the tournament team counts. We wanted to allow the opportunity to include the 97 teams to date. Performance measures, it's proposed to change the definition of a tournament from 20-plus teams to 10-plus teams in order to set more of a realistic standard, encourage tournament success, and not to penalize DBAT for the tournaments under 20. A state-of-play requirement was added for dedicated hotel stays to increase sports tourism. Local teams would not be excluded from this, but they would not count towards the minimum. So they have to at least have 10 teams from out of town, and then any other local teams on top of that is essentially additional and gravy. We added required monthly reporting to the city that includes a breakdown of data for our tracking purposes. The location for tournaments and overflow was defined. The Kerrville Sports Complex must be at capacity first, then local overflow facilities may be used for larger tournaments. Added language providing the city with the authority to close the complex for inclement weather if staff determines it would be in the best interests of the complex and to protect the investment. Damages as a result in plain and wet weather can be significant with costly repairs and downtime to recover. DBAT would not be penalized for tournament team performance if the city closes the complex for inclement weather if it occurs during a scheduled tournament with registered teams. So it would not penalize them for that. And rent forgiveness, we added language for the 2022 year's rent forgiveness as long as the 2023 performance measures are met. If the new 2023 performance measures, if approved, are not met, rent would be owed for both the 2022 years as applicable in 2023. Additional amendments. We added additional amendments including clarifying the language regarding the city's obligations. The city has no obligation to provide maintenance or services on the weekends or holidays unless staff opts to. Right now, the lease is a little bit gray, and we don't have the staffing capabilities for them to essentially work tournaments on the weekends. We have a little bit of overtime plugged in for that, but that's at our option, and we don't want to be required to do so. Our maintenance period is Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m., excluding city holidays. So that 3 p.m. changed from 5 in the contract because of this purpose. We don't have staff there till 5 to lock the gates. So after 3 o'clock, that's DBAT's requirement to do so. Kerrville Little League, the section for Kerrville Little League was simplified to put the responsibility on DBAT and Kerrville Little League to communicate and work together directly and to coordinate. Having the city involved, pretty much in the weeds at a level, has proved to be complicated and inefficient. We operated in the past kind of as a tripod, and it just didn't work. We think it's more efficient for DBAT and Little League to work together directly. This keeps the obligation for Little League to have a place to play their season games during the week at the complex. The schedule will be worked out and coordinated between DBAT and Little League. DBAT will provide Little League with a date that their requested field usage is due in order to plan. If the information is not provided by the deadline, DBAT will not be obligated to hold the fields. Included language that DBAT may only charge Little League the fees adopted by the City Council and the annual fee schedule through the budget process. The FY23 fee is set at $0, and the proposed FY24 fee will also be set at $0. And then we had general cleanup, such as the lease was cleaned up in general ways, such as removing language relating to the construction prior to the opening of the complex, correcting the square footage in the building. It was originally planned for the outdoor artificial turf to be indoor, and thus we reduced the square footage accordingly. We updated contact information, updated to current operations, such as the closing periods, and added a reference to the applicable code of ordinances regarding the sports complex, which I'll talk about in just a minute. We added language regarding the artificial mounds and damages. We would replace them at a 50-50 split between the city and DBAT for normal wear and tear. Anything that's intentional damage would be replaced by DBAT at 100% cost. For example, metal cleats aren't allowed on the mounds because they tear them up. If, for whatever reason, athletes were allowed to play and it wasn't enforced, then DBAT would be responsible for those repairs or replacements. Looks like I'm missing a slide. well, I will go over quickly the Code of Ordinance. It references the Code of Ordinances in this new lease, and essentially this is referencing the ordinances that are directly tied to the Kerbal Sports Complex. We have some rules and regulations in place regarding things like the complex prohibits the sale and use of alcohol, so alcohol is not allowed at the complex, bringing any pets into the facility, engaging in abusive, vulgar, threatening, or disruptive language or behavior, using artificial noisemakers such as air horns, using a skateboard, scooter, rollerblades, or roller skates, using a bicycle anywhere other than within a paved or improved surface, or operating a drone at the sports complex. So those are the ordinances that we would like for DBAT to help us enforce. Next is a chart that compares performance measures in the current lease, which is on the left in the dark blue, and on the right is the proposed tournament performance measure changes that are in the amended lease. As mentioned, the state of play requirement was added and the number of teams were adjusted to reflect total teams. Zero-based rent incentive includes both a requirement of 4 state of play tournaments and 401 plus qualified tournament teams.
Didn't we say, sorry, weren't we discussing 500 at one point?
Yeah, we adjusted this number to be more in line with the performance standards that have been across the duration of the current operational period, in addition to really tightening up the stay-and-play component in conjunction with clarifying the local teams piece.
So the information that was presented to council, what we agreed to, is not presented in this agreement.
This is emphasizing the council's directive to, again, emphasize the stay-and-play component, which has the maximum hotel, motel, and sales tax emphasis.
We were presented with the number 500, and the tenant came to us with 550, and staff proposed to us 500 instead. Council said that was sufficient, and that's not in this agreement. Am I missing anything right there?
This minimum threshold is set at 4 state-of-play tournaments and 401 plus teams.
No, I see that, but we talked about the state-of-play tournaments and the 500 teams.
But there were some adjustments made.
No, I understand, but there were adjustments made after staff came to council and after council said, yes, we're good with that. And we're just now being made aware of it. That's why I'm asking the question. So
Yeah.
it was
This-
500.
Okay, but it has been changed, and this is what we have before us right now.
Well, I understand that. That's why I'm asking the questions, because this isn't what we were presented with. So I'm now concerned why. All right, go ahead, thank you.
Okay. And with that, staff recommends authorizing the city manager to finalize and execute the amended lease agreement as presented. And I will turn it back over to you for any questions. And we also have Nico Gonzalez here, the general manager, to answer any questions you might have for him as well. I do believe we have a speaker signed up as well.
All right, we have had one question. Anyone, council, any other questions that?
I do have other questions.
Let's start with Kim down here and
So looking back at the amended lease agreement, as I was going through, Ashley, again, thank you. I was also able to ask a lot of questions up front to you, and those were put into the presentation tonight, which I appreciate the clarification on all of those things. And as I was reading through the contract, there is one piece I personally saw that had been removed from the contract that I would like to propose putting back into the contract. We all received the 2016 commercial lease agreement, and then in this packet, we've received the amended. What I saw that was removed that I want to suggest, and I'll put out there for conversation, is the section under the advertising piece in the 2016 commercial lease. 9C was the Kerrville Youth Baseball Softball Association and successor in interest, or Little League, as it is now. Shall have the right to install advertising on those fields at the softball baseball complex between the months of March and June. Such advertising must be in the format acceptable to landlord, including size, format, materials, and ease of both installation and removal. Banners are acceptable as advertising during this period of time and pursuant to tournaments and similar events conducted by tenant. Tenant has the right to request that landlord remove the advertising. And the reason I wanted that in there was because I'm a parent of children that have played Little League. And I know that when I first came onto council 4 years ago, I had concerns over what are the barriers to Little League playing at the complex? And some of those were financial. What Little League would say at that time, the person I spoke to would say that they get advertisement in the form of banners that they wouldn't be able to put up, but it was in the contract, so they obviously could have put them up at the time. And they also talked about concessions and the loss of revenue there. So working with Ashley, and this was kind of like the tripod piece, right? Talking through with Ashley and at that time Mark McDaniel, and just wanting to make sure that Little League had an acceptable option to play there that would not cause them undue financial stress. The suggestions were that piece being allowed during that time frame so that money could still be generated and used on those fields. And then even to use some funds to reimburse the concessions to make whole what Little League would need to be made whole. And I find that taking that out, even though we want more interaction and interplay between those two, and to be clear, Little League never did this, I don't believe, but I don't want to take a financial option away that would help make them whole in order for them to play in the sports complex.
Regarding the signage,
Regarding just specifically that item regarding the signage, because they could utilize sponsors, get banners, get money for that, and use that at the fields for play during that time period. And that's what that was intended to be, and that was taken out of the amendment, so.
we are certainly amenable to that. We have no issues with that.
Okay. And what was the number?
Okay, so in the 2016 commercial lease, it was item under advertising 9C, and it does not appear in the current amended lease. And I have here, so y'all can, again, this isn't something new. I don't want to give y'all new information, but this is something that was emailed earlier, so that way you can have direct reference to it.
Thank you.
Also want to, since I have 50 seconds left, thank staff, because I had, as another baseball concern, not only as Little League, but also as a select baseball parent, the concern of wanting to make sure that we could balance wanting the economic development, but also not shuttering our kids from being able to play there, and to define stay and play tournaments, which didn't exclude local teams from coming in, was really important to me. So the way it was structured, I'm thankful for that you can define a stay and play tournament with 10 teams that are from outside, but you don't limit that to only outside teams. That still our local kids can come in and play at those tournaments as well. So that meant a lot to me. Thank you.
Ashley, I was interested in knowing, was Little League contacted? Are they aware of the possibility of some changes? And I don't know that they know what those would be yet, but
Essentially, staff have not been in contact with Little League directly. DBAT has been in contact with them as practice. They do intend on starting their, last I heard, starting their season and playing at the Kerrville Sports Complex starting next week. Is that correct? 2 weeks? 2 weeks. So they will be playing at our complex. And as far as any issues that would significantly impact Little League, there's really none. It's just clarifying that we're removing ourselves from the conversation, letting them work through the schedule, and still guaranteeing their fields. That schedule can be worked out between the two entities, and nothing changed as far as fees. We still are not recommending to charge them.
And I was also curious, one of the things that had been a negative were getting umpires. Is that going to change?
Let Nico speak to that. Would you mind coming to the microphone?
Hello. Are you talking from a Little League level or a tournament weekend level?
Well, either one. There's probably your tournaments primarily.
Yeah, so George can answer the Little League side. On the tournament side, we've basically started the baseball team at Schreiner University, we've started to use them on their off weekends to offset the umpires that we're bringing. And then we kind of did some cost, changes on our end, because we can get umpires to get there. We just have to put them in hotels and pay for their gas and things like that. So there were things that happened last year and the year before, where we just weren't prepared from a financial side to handle that. They're needing $120 per umpire. You need 2 umpires per field. We have 11 fields. It can get expensive as you go down that road. So we're prepared for it now, and so that's kind of where we're at.
Okay.
How many teams did you have at the tournament a few weeks ago? We were there. It was amazing. How many teams were there? It was.
I think there was.
It was phenomenal.
Yeah,
there was nowhere to park.
There was over 60.
72.
72.
It was amazing.
Yeah, March 25th, 26th, we're going to have over 50, and then April 1st and 2nd, we're going to have over 60. So, like Ashley kind of said, since now I'm the perfect game director, I have control but where last year I had to rely on John to say, hey, I'm going to have a tournament there, and I'm just banking on John, being able to execute. So taking the execution out of his hands and putting it in my hands, it's a lot easier to get the job done now. Yeah, so we're excited. We're excited on the baseball
If
end.
y'all get a chance to go out there when there's like 50, 60, I mean, the energy, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
It's so much fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's still a pretty big undertaking for you.
Yeah.
You feel good about it.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's we've COVID's shocked us all, and so since then, this is kind of our first year without anybody having any fear of anything. Back to normal as much as you could say that. So yeah, it's going to be a good year for us with all the things that we've put in place.
Council, anyone else with a question?
When you and the city were discussing, did y'all discuss the 500 or 550 teams?
Yeah, we discussed it.
I thought that's what it was. I just heard comments from others that says it wasn't. So
yeah, there was 100 teams discussed. There was 200. There was 500. There's a lot of numbers discussed.
Yeah. Okay. Have you been in contact with Little League? Do they understand kind of the changes that are being made?
Yeah, George and your father. Yeah, we've been working closely. We've had a couple meetings. Got everything lined out, ready to go. George presented me with the schedule. So yeah.
Okay.
It's been fun.
Okay, thank you for that. One question I have is, maybe just a comment, but under the Little League section, they are no longer guaranteed use of the playing fields, whereas previously that word guarantee was. Now it just says that they're going to work with DBATs and all that. So I'd just like to see why that was removed and if we can put that back in. Next, going on to the rent, there was a rolling period at one time, and that's changed to just a prior year, I guess, when we're looking at how much rent they owe us. Is there a reason why we changed from the rolling year to just look at the whole prior year?
It was actually conflicting language. It partially said annual and partially said rolling, and so we have previously interpreted it to be on an annual basis, but as we consulted with our attorneys and identified the conflict there, we've attempted to clarify the conflicting language to an annual basis, which is how we've essentially been operating contractually.
Okay, gotcha. I was also surprised when I saw a lot of the terms about the Little League standpoint of it, because we weren't presented with all that information discussed during our discussions. So doesn't include all the terms that we discussed, including the 500 teams that council agreed to be part of their rent requirements. I'll save that for later. How much do they currently owe us? If they had to pay us right now, what's the total that they owe us?
$28,000.
And can you tell me how that's calculated? Because I'm trying to figure that out.
Sure. Yep, so based on the rolling period, they did not meet their performance measures for 4 months. So 7,000 times 4 is
Just the last 4 months of 2022?
correct.
Thank you, okay. One thing that we talked about is, one question I asked at least was, let's say we left the agreement intact as is, and they had to pay us. There was a discussion that because they break even right now, there would be no term that they had to pay us. And so I was told that there would be some type of provision in there that said something like they would have to pay us. Where can I find that? Because right now, all I see is there was language added that says, if they don't meet these requirements, they'll have to pay us for this year and last year. But under the current agreement, they already have to pay us for their dues already. So what language did we add in there that says they have to pay us?
Can I defer to our city attorney to
Okay.
answer that question?
Well, and maybe I should have had William here, but he's the one that negotiated with, between Ashley and EA and the DBAT or BTB. So I don't know, I know that was discussed, and so, but I wasn't privy to those conversations.
Okay.
There is a new section that is included in here that does have essentially stronger legal ability for the city to be able to basically seize assets that is not in the current agreement. And so that does give a stronger ability for the city to be able to realize unrealized lease payments.
Can you point,
should performance not occur.
can you point me to that when you get a minute?
I believe it's an amendment, I believe it's an attachment, it's at the back.
One thing one other thing that I want to talk about is, we're forgiving rent, and what I want to know is what is the city getting in return for that? Because essentially the taxpayers are now subsidizing a business. I would like to see added into here that residents of the city, because they are already paying for the maintenance and subsidizing it, they're allowed to go in and enter and watch games or tournaments free of charge at no cost with proof of residency. And so that's the thing that we can do for our citizens. Like I said, they're subsidizing and paying for this anyways. I think that would be somewhat of an equal return for what we're forgiving them for. Or giving them, whatever you want to say.
Just to answer the question that
Yes.
was asked earlier, section 29 on page 22, the landlord's lien and security interest, that is a new section that was added.
29.
Yeah, it's on page 22. Paragraph 29.
That's interesting. I'm looking at both of them. That was in there the entire time. Section 29, assignment and subletting.
I believe there was a separate component to the actual lien agreement that was not previously included in any previous agreement.
Okay, because almost everything after page 19 is exactly the same.
It's hard to go over things whenever the person that drafted it's not here and didn't know those questions were coming. It just,
Well, I agree with you. Maybe that person should be here, or maybe whoever is overseeing that person should have those answers for us.
Well, remember, Councilmember Garcia, and you may be right. He was called to Austin today to testify at a committee hearing that was called on Friday. So, sorry about that. It would have helped also if you would have called earlier today, and maybe we could have tracked this stuff down. I could have gotten up to speed on some of these issues.
I feel like it would have been good for us all to be up to speed at the same time. Okay, that's all I have. I'd like to see that in addition to the residences, allow them for free.
Okay, anything else that you would like to add to it,
No, I think, there was a lot of positives that, 900 teams in 2020, you don't get any benefit for the extra 400, 500 teams, right? Like, y'all aren't up here saying, hey, thanks for, all the extra 500. It's like, all right, well, these little 11 teams you missed, every single year that you go over that number, there's no benefit, like, for our side. There's no one that's saying, hey, you brought in extra hot tax dollars, you did this, you did this. It's just, hey, if you didn't hit this number, well, you exceeded it by that whole number, a year prior. So it just seems like it's kind of convoluted in the sense of, really gray areas going on. That's my
Okay.
opinion.
All right, thank you, sir. And we have a speaker, I believe.
Yes, ma'am. George Baruti.
George Broody, 1616 Glen Road. So the first part is Kerrville Little League. I'm on the board. I'm not here representing them, but I do know some information. The first thing is we are going to be playing our games this year at DBAT facility, largely because Nico was easy to work with, and we were able to just go around the city and just work directly with him. That was a pleasure. I contacted him last year. It was late, and we worked towards this year, and we're able to get our season worked out to the benefit of both of us, I think. Again, the main goal has always been to keep DBAT whole and to keep Little League whole in the transaction. So we are not using the fields at any time that he is selling use to somebody else. So we're not imposing on his profits, and we're not being charged because we're not actually imposing on his profits. So that's the reason, that's the goal we've tried to work for towards the entire time. So to the question about whether Little League was contacted, the answer is no. So until this agenda was put out, we didn't know any details of what was being done. We had an inkling that something was being done because you guys had the executive session meeting, whatever, a few weeks ago. It would have been nice to at least get our input because I forget who mentioned it, but one of them is the advertising that she talked about. That's being taken out. We didn't use it, but it was because we were using it in the past as part of a negotiation of price with DBAT. So we weren't trying to cost them anything and vice versa. But the other thing that was taken out, there were two other things. One was some specific language about concessions that aren't exactly in there. But the big one is, as I think it was Mr. Garcia pointed out, there was a guarantee of Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, 5 to 9. And we never intended to, again, take out cost, profit field use, but the guarantee made it so that we all knew in advance what we were shooting for. It'd be nice to have that in there. And so, again, I'm not speaking from, it's not approved, like I'm not representing the board, so to speak. But those are things, had they known, I'm thinking they would have been concerned with. It would have been nice to leave those in. As a citizen, it is a little bit strange to hear this called an amended lease. This is clearly a new lease, new term, and I think it's one of the whereas clauses that says this completely supplants in its entirety the original lease. That's the definition of new. Why does that matter? Well, from the standpoint of taking the term from 20 down to 4 or 3, as a citizen, I think that's kind of, it doesn't seem to fit. And changing the rolling calendar is against what the original framers of this set up. In fact, I think Ms. Boyle just pointed out that, in fact, they are using the rolling calendar. That's where you came up with the 7,000 times 4 months. So you're not really using a calendar year for the calculation, which is good because the rolling calendar addresses, I think, what Nico was talking about, where when you have overages in 1 year, those continue to play out in the rolling calendar year. So you might consider putting that back. But anyways, in short, it's been a pleasure, like I say, to clean it up to where Little League works directly with him, and he's an asset to the community, so try and keep them here. But anyways, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, because we have some items that we would like to possibly add, do we take each of those separately? Just how should we handle this?
We'll take them by separate motion if desired, Mayor.
Okay. All right. Anything else that anyone would like to comment on before we?
Yes, I would. I would like to just comment that I was referenced as feel that being called council and saying that something that was discussed in executive session as an agreement, since it was put out there, I was fine with a lower number. And if I wasn't, then I wouldn't approve the number that was out there. A council member suggested a higher number, and so that was part of a consideration. I do not recall a hard and fast decision being made, other than that we go back in those negotiations. Yes, but I very specifically on the number never specified that it had to be 500. So just to make that clear to the public that it wasn't like some council decision, because we don't make decisions in executive session. So just, I wanted to clarify that. And then I guess a motion, if you want a motion.
I think, does anybody have anything before we start the motions here?
I do.
Joe?
This contract is by its very nature the definition of inside baseball, because there's so many different organizations that play, Parks, Kerrville Little League, DBAT. Some of the suggestions tonight, the advertisement, free admission for Kerrville residents, would have a very large effect on the agreement, okay? Some of us who do not have kids in baseball, we're not on Parks and Baseball, are having a hard time knowing the benefit or the detriment of. And it might be worthwhile, Mayor, and it's obviously your call, to have staff review some of these and come back to us with, I don't know if there's time is of the essence on this contract or not. Are we worried about getting it done right this second, or are we worried about getting it done correctly?
We would much rather have it done correctly.
And what's going to happen tonight is the contract's going to be negotiated by 5 of us, one of whom really does not have much of a clue about the business of baseball. Did you want that, or do you want to have time to work over it?
I recommend staff or council providing us direction, and then we can finalize the agreement based on your
That would
recommendations.
work, because what I do not want to do is to renegotiate a contract that y'all have worked on for a long time among the 5 of us, okay? It's like we're driving the bus from the back seat. If you present a contract and there are things that obviously need to be changed, and I think some of the suggestions are valid, we need y'all to come back, evaluate those, and come back with a recommendation, in my opinion. So in that vein, Mayor, I don't know if it's worthwhile to postpone our decision. I mean, we could give direction tonight, but.
Go ahead.
Well, would it be feasible to give the Little League Board the opportunity to look at this and make some recommendations as well?
We want everybody to be successful.
Sure. We don't have a contract with Kerrville Little League, so I wouldn't recommend taking it to their board. This is a contract between the city and DBAT. There aren't significant terms regarding Little League. We're simply simplifying the language. We're not charging them. We are guaranteeing them fields. There is a term in there. So I would not recommend sending it to the board. We're happy to take their suggestions, but again, the conversations are between Little League and Kerrville DBAT.
This agreement is between the city of Kerrville and DBAT. There's no provision really, there's no third party in this contract.
Correct.
They are listed in here. If that's the case, then.
They're not a signatory to the agreement.
You're right.
Right, which is, I think, the concern. So what if we were just to take out all the provisions of Little League and allow DBAT to work with Little League separately?
Well, that's essentially what we have.
Well,
Because there are things in here.
because there's guarantees. There are some guarantees. Yes, there are some guarantees. Yes.
Can you point me to one?
Yes, where it says that they have to have the ability to play on the
It
field.
doesn't say that anymore.
It does.
Can you show me? Because it was removed under
It didn't
12C.
it didn't give dates, but it said that they have to present within 6 weeks
Under the previous one, it said that the
And if
tenant
they don't do that, then
shall.
they don't have
It said the
to.
tenant shall guarantee use. On this one, it says tenant may allow. So that's a difference in guarantee.
There's also something about
Yeah, there's a whole
a time frame.
Yes,
with Little League?
yes, there is.
I can read it if you would
You
like.
have it.
So page 9 of 28, section 14A, about halfway through, it says tenant shall provide Kerrville Little League with at least 6 weeks to provide tenant with the required information. If Kerrville Little League fails to provide the required information by the deadline, tenant provides to Kerrville Little League in writing. Tenant will have no obligation to guarantee fields at the baseball softball complex for Kerrville Little League games.
So it's a that's a guarantee if they provide the information in a timely way, that they have that guarantee.
That's our interpretation of it.
Is that what's
That's our
intended?
interpretation of it, you're
That's my
correct.
interpretation as well.
Yes, they're guaranteed unless they do not submit their information by that time.
In time.
But then DBAT does not guarantee the fields, they can open it up. But
But see, here now we actually are talking about a third party in the agreement. And if that's our interpretation, I think, I'm not speaking for them, but DBAT may have a different interpretation. So that's why I think it would be best if we just take all of that out and allow the two to work those out between each other. So there's no city interpretation or council member interpretation of what these terms are. And they can do that themselves.
Effectively-
I trust that they can work that out.
Effectively, we as council are saying that we have no control over whether our kids play there or not if we do that. We're effectively saying, if y'all can't work it out, then sorry, kids of Kerrville, City of Kerrville is not providing any obligations that y'all can play on the fields. This is saying that there are circumstances that make it clear that our kids are allowed to play on those fields and they're not being charged for
And
it
they're
through
not
this
being charged.
contract. If we take that out and say, y'all work it out and the city has nothing to do with it, then there's no obligation there. And we as council members don't. I would not be comfortable as a council member saying that I can't do anything about whether or not our Little League kids play there, because this is a city facility and we want our kids there. And these are provisions that make it so that our kids have the right to be out on those fields.
Councilmember Garcia, if I may make a suggestion, I think we would be amenable to including or revising the language to put guarantee back in there, because that is our intention. We would guarantee, if that's the pleasure of the council.
That's what I'd like to see, if we can, yeah. Because that was one of the things that was taken out.
Well, just so
but-
you all know, we did enhance the language that was in 14A to a shall, which is a legal requirement to prove that they have been in communication with that entity to schedule those teams.
Shall what?
Shall work.
Shall
Tenant
work
shall
at the
work
very
with
beginning.
Kerrville Little League or any of its sections or
So,
interests.
yeah, that's the same. Tenant shall work closely with Kerrville Youth Baseball Softball Association. That's how it read before.
Right, so they're essentially guaranteeing that they're going to work with them when scheduling those teams.
Right, but that wasn't a change.
But-
But I'm good with your suggestion, Ms. Boyle, about adding that guarantee back in.
And we need to leave that. I mean, part of this was for our own kids. And I feel that we need to leave that in there
Well,
for them.
and I agree, and that's fine. If we do, then that's what I would like to see in it. Otherwise, I don't see a reason for the city to be involved if we're not guaranteeing some of that stuff, so. That's fine.
Ashley, if this was put off, if we give you our individual suggestions and we don't actually vote on it, is anything jeopardized by waiting 2 weeks?
I don't believe so. I think, and I can certainly defer to the attorney or the city manager, but I think our most pressing matter would be the term of the rent due, and that would be figuring out what's going forward there. But I believe if we address this in 2 weeks, unless the city manager disagrees,
We would just like specific clarity from the council on what it is you're looking to put into the changes. Obviously, we do have a negotiated and signed agreement by the other party, and so we want very specific clarity, so when we come back to you, we can get the authority to execute that contract.
So you really would prefer that we would take each of these and vote on them now, would be really the very best way to handle it?
So we have clear feedback on what it is
What?
you're wanting us to modify, and essentially with that feedback, we should be able to, if council feels comfortable, if we had that level of clarity, we would feel
Yeah,
comfortable
well,
having the authority to
okay.
finalize and execute, which is what we were recommending.
All right, so Kim, you will have a suggestion to vote on?
So we're going to vote on these items?
That's my understanding, is that you really need from us.
We serve at the pleasure of the council, so however y'all want to handle it.
Okay,
Maybe best if we vote on them, that way it has
Well,
direction coming from a vote.
direction is clear then.
Right, yeah.
If I'm gonna make this recommendation that I wanna make, can I ask the operator, the previously allowed signage that what I understand wasn't utilized before, but was in the contract with that specific piece? I don't know if you recall that
I
part of
probably
it
wasn't there at that
specifically.
point.
Can I
Yes.
The idea is that there was a designated field or fields during Little League season where the Little League sponsor signage can go during the gameplay.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
You're okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, and that, okay, so that was the provision I wanted
signs,
to
yeah.
put back in there.
Yeah, because then, I mean, you know, when Little League has to come out of pocket, they can go to local businesses
That's
and
exactly
and
the
offset
right.
costs for
That's
their
right.
season and.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not gonna hamper your internal business operations by allowing them to do that during.
No, I'm for the kids and I want
Yeah.
them to.
Cool.
Now, who would have, is it his responsibility then to yay or nay on those?
That would just be, the idea is that Little League gets the sponsors and they
Right.
work with DBAT
Right.
to put the signage up, but DBAT is going under this agreement to DBAT doesn't have a choice. They say, yes, you bring us the signage and we put it up on the fields during that season. That's what I wanted there.
They have not been doing signage in the past. you
Well,
said.
I think it sounds like that things are getting to a place where they might be at that point.
Okay, is there an authority to say yay or nay to,
Can George speak? He says he has a suggestion. No.
I can't speak for the league, but a suggestion, I think get you past what you're trying to.
well, come to the microphone.
Just make sure that there's not language that precludes us from being able to negotiate with him to do such a thing. It seems like we'll be able to do that, but if we're able to do that terms outside, because I don't think just make sure it doesn't say we can't.
I understand that, but I want
Yeah.
that safeguard in there, so I'm
Okay.
gonna propose that it's in there.
Well, my question was, who is the authority on what those banners can say?
If it's the same language as the original lease, excuse me, I'm sorry, Councilmember Clarkson, it would be the landlord, the city.
Okay.
It would have to be
Oh,
specs
okay.
that are
All right.
acceptable
I
to the
just-
city.
Okay, that helps me. Okay. All right, so Kim, you will have one. Brenda, do you have anything? You have one?
1, 2, 3.
3? Joe, you do not have any?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, who's ready? Are you ready with yours?
We can start with Councilmember Clarkson if you want.
Okay, I will move that we, I don't really know how to make this motion, that we, add item 9C from the original commercial lease back into our, commercial
Lease amendment.
commercial lease amendment. And I guess, should we, Mike, should we not be calling this an amended commercial lease? I mean, is this just supersede and replace?
Amendment that I think based on, to try to be as clear as possible, they just chose to rewrite as incorporating all the amendments into it.
So would you recommend that we not use the word amended, or we do, or
No,
you-
it does, no.
Doesn't matter?
I think I would use the amended contract. That's what it is. That's what we're calling it.
All right.
So,
That's it. So are we making motions and seconds and voting on these
Yes.
specific, okay, so my motion is to reintroduce advertising item 9C from the original commercial lease.
And I'll
Mayor?
second that.
Kelly, you've got that? Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Mayor, I just need to ask, is the KYBSA still the same organization? Has that organization changed its name, or? We're
Kerrville
talking about
Youth
Kerrville Little League,
Baseball.
and this says Kerrville Youth.
They use both interchangeably, I believe.
Okay, so we're
Fine, I just want to make sure
we're on the same page there. Okay.
I know in their bylaws, because I've worked with the board on those, that it does say Kerrville. The name of the organization is Kerrville Little League.
All right, did we have a second on this? Brenda, all right. Are there any questions or comments before we vote?
Will we have will we have Kerrville Little League, or
We'll
does
just
matter?
leave it like it is. That's what we're going to do.
Right now, it's Kerrville Little League in the amended lease.
we'll just keep that one. Okay.
Okay. All right, all in favor, raise your right hand. And it passes 5-0, okay? Thank you, Kim. All right, Roman, let's take yours one at a time.
Okay, sticking with the theme of Little League, I move to add the guarantee language provisions back into the lease agreement.
Second that.
Further discussion, further
For
discussion,
scheduling and stuff.
further discussion, with Ms. Boyle said, correct? She said they didn't have a problem. Is that what we're talking about?
Right, that one. Yes.
Or guarantee in there?
Right, yeah, that one.
Okay, so everyone understands what this motion says and what it does? All right, and who was the second?
Aye.
Kim? All right, all in favor, raise your right hand, and it passes unanimously. All right, number 2, Roman.
Okay, under the rent provision, rent and expenses provisions, I'd like to change the higher number to be 500 or 501 plus, whatever was originally presented, and make it a rolling period instead of the calendar year, since that'll allow you to, like you said, allow you to take whatever you were exceeding in your requirements and allow you to continue on. So, yeah.
Okay, wait.
Yes.
Expense provision
there's
change the
2 here.
number 500 or 501, whatever? I don't understand
Well, I'll
that.
make it 500 plus.
Okay, let's make it 2 motions. So do
Oh, okay,
the
sure.
number first.
Okay, sure, so I'll propose, so scratch that, I'll withdraw my motion. My new motion is to, under the rent and expenses provision, to make the higher number 501 plus, from 401 plus,
For tournament teams.
for tournament teams, correct.
All right, do we have a second to that motion?
I don't think I understand it. I mean, we already have these other provisions that he has to hit.
So the reason why I think it was necessary during our discussion, we are lowering the number of teams that can be a part of a tournament from 20, players that can be a part of a team, from 20 team members to 10 to be included. And so that will allow a lot more teams to participate, which means they can have a lot more tournaments, which means during my discussion, it was understood that if they're going to have a lot more tournaments, then we raise that bar as well. And what it currently is from 400, they proposed, from my understanding from the city staff, 550, and the staff said, let's do 500. So that's my proposal, is to do the 500 plus, 501 plus.
Does staff have a reason for the 400? Was it just a negotiated point, or what was the?
More consistent with the performance across the historical component within the last 5 years. And again, the emphasis was placed more heavily on the stay and play tournaments, which more influence
I understand.
the hotel
I think I
stays.
understand.
But remember, historically, they weren't allowed to use teams that had 10 players. So now they will be. So that changes really. We can't use the historical data too much to say, because before they weren't allowed to use that. So they had to stick with the 20. And now we're allowing 10. That's why the bar is raised. I mean, does that make sense to you too, as what I'm saying? Is that accurate?
Yeah, so at first we had to have 20 teams for it to be considered a tournament.
Right. And now you're allowed.
The language got changed to 10.
Right.
So if I have a 12-team tournament this year, that counts versus last year, it was like it never happened.
Right. So you'll be allowed to get a lot more tournaments because of the number of teams.
It won't restrict me to tell someone, hey, go somewhere else because it didn't
Right.
meet our minimum.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, the forced data plays is going to be huge, and that's a difficult challenge as well. Just FYI, that's tough to hit forced data plays.
Okay, did we, Joe, any more questions on this?
I think I understand your point. I don't know that it meets the bar, though. Listening to what the staff is recommending.
The number 500?
Yeah, so that's pretty dang big.
Well, they gave us 550.
We want them to succeed.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Kim, comment?
Y'all know more about this than I.
I think what Nico said is very significant. Forced stay and play tournaments is gonna be
That's
really
huge.
hard.
That's huge.
Really hard. And, I'm excited to see that happen, but that's a tough ask. So
And that's what
I
you-
don't have any inclination to raise it above 400.
Okay. Do you think you'll be able, because I don't know if that was presented to you prior to all these terms coming to council, do you think you'll be able to meet the 4 stay-to-play tournaments and the 550 per rolling or calendar year, however we have it?
I'm confident that we can hit 400, and I think that 500 or 550. I'm sorry.
You're good.
It's kind of apples to oranges. I love 400 because it helps me as my business and all that good stuff. But I want to prove that we can work hard and bring a lot of teams here, and that's why I set the bar high for myself. And so, I'm good with either. I love 400. Obviously, y'all know why. And thank you to the city. But it doesn't matter to me, to be honest. I'm going to make sure that we hit our goals.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so the motion is, again,
500 plus teams for the participating in tournaments.
okay, do we have a second to that motion?
I can't see, I don't think I can.
Okay, it does not move forward because lack of a second. Second, the next one.
Yes. In order to help benefit you, I want to move to change the term from the prior calendar year to rolling calendar year or rolling period. In order to determine the requirements that they have to fulfill.
Can I ask the staff,
Yes.
is that workable?
It's more burdensome to be able to track. It also can have the effect of, peaks and valleys that essentially, penalize for a valley that occurred in a certain period months ago. And so it can be a benefit, but it can also be to detriment as well.
Yeah, because a valley carries forward too.
That's correct.
If the contract is, it's going to be backdated the first of the year, and the benchmarks are on an annual basis, what is the benefit then? What would the benefit be for having rolling?
So during the rolling years, just like Nico stated, and if you want to, you can speak to this too. I don't know if you did too much, but preferring the rolling period over the calendar year period, how that assists you.
Yeah, like I'm trying to kind of follow here.
Me too.
So you're basically saying in 2020 when we had 900 teams, let's just put it at 900. I know it's above that. Essentially, that's going to help me as I go to the next year. If I had 300, I have that 100 to cover that year. Is that what rolling kind of means?
Right. So if you look back at if you look back at starting this month at March, you look back from this March to last March instead of January to December.
It's always those. It's all April to April and.
Exactly. So the last 12 months is what you'll be looking at on a rolling period. And so I think when we were talking and you discussed how you had the influx of teams or tournaments that you were able to have during that rolling period, that would have kept you going throughout without having to come to a time where you had to pay your rent, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So, yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, that.
But then, I mean, as Councilmember Herring said, you still have your valleys, and then you carry the burden forward as well as the reward. I don't know.
Basically, it's turning it into the average must be.
No.
Which still is the same requirement. I'm trying to understand. Roman, I'm honestly trying to understand.
No, I got you. Well, because what I'm saying is if you have those valleys, like we're calling it, in a specific month or months, the other months can make up for that because on that rolling period, they're covering those. Whereas if you look at the annual period, if you're not looking at it as a rolling period, and it's just a static 1 year term, those valleys now carry forward for that entire term, and then that's why we have the time where in 2022 they had to pay us. And that's what we were calculating with anyways.
Ashley, any thoughts?
I do. I think staff's preference would be to keep it a calendar year. It would also incentivize DBAT to perform more strongly. If, for example, if we based 2022 calendar year on a calendar year versus a rolling, they would have paid a significantly higher rent, to the tune of 86,000 versus 28. It's at the discretion of the council, how stringent you want to be. It's easier for us to track on a calendar year, as far as reporting data. I frequently, get asked to report data on what is our team count, and it would be difficult for me to say. It's a lot easier for me to say, year to date, we're at this versus, well, we're at this. But if you roll it forward or you roll up, it's difficult to track and to report on. So again, it depends. We're at the pleasure of the council, but our recommendation would be the calendar year.
So I don't know how your reporting works. So could you explain it to me? Does the city have to get all that data themselves, or do we get that from DBAT?
We request it from DBAT. They submit monthly data every month. And we track it and to look not only for concessions, but overall performance, see how they're doing, how they're performing, what leagues are going on, how many teams they have, and that's what we're using the data for.
I'm not convinced of the mathematical advantage of rolling. I'm sorry, it's just going to turn into an average.
So do you still want to make a motion, Roman?
I'm not trying to be difficult, I just don't understand
I got
how
you.
it would benefit.
I'm trying to help out DBAT too and Nico. And so if he feels like that can be a benefit to him, then yes. If it's going to be a burden, then I don't want to put that on them. So,
Nico, I understood you to say you could live with either.
Yeah, I need to understand it better.
Oh, why don't you come back to the mic?
I need to understand both sides, I guess, before I would give you an answer. I see the benefits, obviously, from years that I've had in past, and, like she was saying this last year, there would be no, I'm still trying to follow it, so I don't know if I could give y'all a burden or a help. And thank you, Roman, for what you're saying. I just don't know which way I could lean right now.
Okay.
I think it could hurt or could help,
Either. Depends. I think to simplify it, reporting on a calendar year would benefit more the city, and incentivize DBAT to perform and bring in more tournament teams. And the opposite would be benefiting DBAT.
The whole world works on a calendar year or a fiscal year. I don't get to have a rolling average on my taxes at the shop. We start and we end on the same day every year. But I can't imagine, I just don't get the concept that would help him. I'm sorry.
well, and I just want to clarify too, this isn't like a unique idea that I just came up with. This is just what was in the prior agreement. And that's how staff has been constantly saying, well, that was in the prior agreement, so we kept it in, and all this kind of stuff as a reason for keeping some certain provisions. I think the way that it was also calculated, the rent that they have to pay us, the $28,000, was calculated on a rolling period. So that's clearly what we've been using this entire time. I think it will benefit them. I think, like Ms. Boyle just said, if it's the calendar year, the static, you just look at December, it benefits the city, whereas if you look at the rolling period, it benefits DBAT, and I think that's what we're trying to help succeed. And so
from an operational standpoint, we have been tracking on an annual basis. The calculation that was presented to you today for the base rent component was based off of the 12-year rolling average because of the conflicting language that was in the old agreement, and because that's what was provided to us from a legal standpoint, from a collectability standpoint. But from a performance metric standpoint, we have been on an annual basis over the last 4 or 5 years.
Right.
Okay. Are you going to make a motion?
My motion.
Your motion is on the table?
Yes.
And did we have a second to it?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Do we have a second? Read us the motion, Shelley, so we are clear.
To change the term from prior calendar year to rolling calendar year in order to track.
Okay. All right. And second? We do not have a second. It does not move forward for lack of a second. All right. And your next one, Roman?
Yes, the last one I got is to add a provision that will allow residents of the city to enter and watch games and tournaments free of charge with proof of residency.
Okay, do we have a second to that motion?
I'd second that one.
Okay. Any comments, questions? All right, all in favor, raise your right hand.
We certainly like clarity.
That's gonna work on an operational level for.
I think it's not good.
Just so I'm aware, it's,
Be easy on us, okay?
there is a benefit to local teams in Kerrville from a tournament perspective. You're already not charging for Little League, but the local Kerrville select teams, they're already getting free entries into the tournaments since they live in this area. If we want to change that to those teams now have to pay for the tournament and they get free entry, I just want everyone to be aware if you play for the Kerrville Indian Select Team or the Kerrville, yes, sir.
I'm sorry to be ignorant, but what is the admission fee?
$10 adult for adults.
So
And-
grandma and grandpa pay $10 to go see.
Not for Little League, this is for select, but I'm telling you, everywhere we go, every weekend, everywhere we go, the expectation is you get your $10 out, you get your $10 out. Every location in the state of Texas that we travel to.
Oh, well.
Yeah, that's just the way it is.
And so that would still apply because those that are traveling to Kerrville would still pay. You're talking about those that when we travel out.
I know,
we don't pay.
I'm suggesting that that's part of the business model of what.
I'm saying that like the Kerrville Indians, for example, they're the prominent select group here. If they play in our tournament, it's $450 for the parents on that team to play. They get that fee waived because they're a local team. Now, they would have to now pay that, but what y'all are saying is they would get free entry. So it's they're not gonna.
Feel it.
Yeah, the parents are gonna have to pay one way or the other. Right now, they're getting it in free entries, but if now they're getting in free, we're gonna put the entries on them.
So let me give you an example. Because I have younger siblings who play in tournaments, and not all of them are playing with the local teams because we go and play with an outside team outside Kerrville, and a lot of them play here at the local tournaments. So we live here, and anytime I want to go see my younger brother play in a tournament every single day.
Correct.
It will cost us up to $50 or per person usually because of the amount of days that they're hosting the tournament. And when my grandparents want to go, or my aunts and
No, I
uncles.
get it. I get it.
So that's the example that I'm
I just
giving.
wanted to make everyone aware because when
Right.
these teams are told you now have to pay because you get in free, that they might say, "Oh, great," but I didn't want it to go unnoticed that they are
Right.
getting some benefit by being a local team versus just because those parents are now saving those dollars, and yes, they're paying it at the gate, but they would have paid it for the entry. It's either way.
Entry
they're-
of the team as a whole.
Correct.
Okay.
So
where-
each parent is gonna pay, $40 for that tournament entry per family on that team. Instead of them paying that 40, now they're just paying it in the gate fee. So they're paying it either way. But like you're saying,
So
for
then
patrons that are from Kerrville and just wanna go out there and watch, then there's a valid point there.
So, but you have operated other facilities, correct?
Yes, all across Texas.
Okay, so is that a common thing for anybody that's local can just go in free? I mean,
No,
is that,
never.
okay, I didn't think that was a
No,
thing
I
that
have-
ever
I have
happened.
a
I
part-
expect to
yeah.
pay every time I go
Yeah.
to one of those, and that's just kind of the way it is, and learn that early on.
Well, yeah, I have a park at, McAllister Park is with the city of San Antonio. Everyone has to pay
Yep.
there. City of Kyle, everyone has to pay their city of
Whether
Dripping
they
Canyon.
live in San Antonio, Kerrville,
Yeah,
or wherever.
everywhere,
Yeah.
and I have deals all over. In Dallas, I have a deal. In Houston, everywhere everyone pays.
Well, and I think a good thing to note too is that the taxpayers are putting a lot of money up front for the maintenance and everything of this complex, as well as what we're allowing in this amended agreement to forgive the 28,000. So all of that does eventually go down to the cost of the taxpayers, and I think in order to see a good benefit, we may not see that everywhere in Kerrville, but wouldn't it be nice for the city of Kerrville to be a little bit different in that way and allow their citizens to go in free of charge? I think it is unique, maybe. I don't know. I haven't done a lot of research on what other cities do, but I think it is a good thing to put forth for our taxpayers who are helping in this, in this way.
Okay, so we have a motion
A second.
and a second.
Go grandparents.
All right, all in favor, raise your right hand. And it does not, no, we have 4, all against, raise your right hand. And it fails for lack of a majority.
Fair enough.
All right. Was that
That's all I
everything?
got. Yes.
No more. Anyone else? One last one? All
You want
right.
one more? I can give
No,
you.
we're good, we're good. All right, staff, are you clear on where we stand with this?
Yes.
Our understanding is that essentially council wants to add the language of 9C in the previous commercial lease agreement in its entirety, however, utilizing the term Kerrville Little League versus KYBSA. Is that correct?
Okay, you good?
And the guarantee language.
And the
The
guarantee.
guarantee, correct.
Okay, and Shelley, you've got the other two, you're clear?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so you'll bring this back to us then,
No.
authorize it tonight? All right. Okay, do we have a motion with these revisions for EA to finalize this amendment?
I'd like to see it come back to us, that way we can see what the guarantee provisions look like.
Okay,
I'll make that a motion to table it until the next regular meeting.
all right. Do we have a second?
No.
It dies for lack of a second. We need a motion.
Move that we allow the city manager to execute and sign the final amended commercial lease based on the two amendments that council.
I think there were actually three, were there not? Or
Just two.
Okay, all right. We have a second from Joe. All in favor, raise your right hand. And we have 5 for giving Mr. Hoppy the authority. It passes.
That's how the sausage is.
All right. Before we dismiss, is there anything that anyone would like to put on a future agenda?
Mayor, I would like to put a review of our animal control ordinance on a future agenda. And Councilmember Clarkson has volunteered to co-sponsor that with me.
Okay. I would like to do this, basically the same thing, but take it one step further, if we could. What I would like to say is, in light of the termination of the interlocal agreement, which was effective yesterday, the 13th of March, I would like to request that the subject be put on the agenda for our next meeting, March 28th, specifically to remove Commissioner Don Harris from the Library Advisory Board.
Second.
Are you okay with that?
Yep.
Second?
Do we need to do that since there's no longer an agreement, they no longer have a member?
Yes, we do need to.
Formally.
It was an ordinance that put him on, and so we need an ordinance to remove it.
Oh, it's an ordinance existing.
Am I correct there, EA?
The Library Advisory Board ordinance was revised in the, I believe,
Gotcha.
2019 interlocal agreement, and that, but based off those terms, and it did add members sitting on that board from the County Commissioners Court.
Gotcha, okay. All right, I'm good.
Separate things, in my opinion.
Yeah, those are two separate.
One's about the library board and one's about animal.
Yes.
So could we talk about both of those?
I'm sorry?
Could we do them separately?
Yeah.
Well,
They are kind of separate.
Yeah,
I think.
they,
you think
They're the same
separate
topic,
enough?
but they
Yeah.
are pretty separate.
All right, so we want this to say that, in light of the interlocal agreement,
we'll just do two separate agendas.
Yeah, so we can have,
Two separate agendas.
we can have Councilmember Hughes' agenda request and then your agenda request, and we'll just vote on those separately.
oh, all right, say that again now.
Okay, my agenda request was
was-
to put the review of our animal control ordinance on a future agenda.
Okay,
And she has a
than the interlocal.
Yeah.
different.
okay, you're right.
To
I'm
add
with you.
clarification, the mayor's request will come in the form of an ordinance on
Right.
first reading.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
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 So,
It'll amend the library advisory board.
So it won't
Take-
be, it'll just,
Right.
it'll come
Yes.
forward.
Animal Services Ordinance Review, it's gonna take a little bit of staff time, and so
Yes.
we will certainly put it on a future agenda, but we're gonna need to go through that.
Yeah.
We may need to workshop it with you guys, that's a little
Yeah.
less clear cut than.
right, right.
Okay,
So we can expect the
Yeah,
next
I mean-
one will have the mayor's revision to the ordinance on our agenda.
We certainly can get that accomplished by the March 28th for you.
okay.
Yeah, and I mean, this is no rush, but just to try and get the process started, to go over some of those.
Stated, no doubt.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
we've got
Motion.
a second to, that motion.
Do we need to read it again, Shelley? You're good? Okay, thank you. And all in favor, raise your right hand, and it passes, thank you. And then the second one will be to, remove Commissioner Harris from the Library Advisory Board.
Can we just say, because it sounds bad to say, can we just say to make an amendment to the ordinance to remove the commissioner?
County's representative.
Yeah.
Representative.
Because there's a
County
provision that
representative.
put
Right, right.
Commissioner Harris on it.
All right.
And I don't want us
County
to look like we're
representative.
targeting him.
All right.
It's just the county
Okay,
representative.
the county representative.
Thank
Okay, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Oh, we have several seconds.
All
All
seconds.
right. All right. Well,
Jesus.
and all in favor, raise your right hand.
Just pick one of us.
And it passes. All right, thank you. Anything else? All right, I think it's time to go home. It's 8:00. We will call this meeting closed.
Congratulations.
I have a question for you.
I had fun at that
Adopt a highway
That was probably the most fun part.
Who's gonna be